There'll be two little films that we're going to be watching. One is Peter Morgan, as he taped his own interview, actually, from his own computer, way back in May when he found out that he won this prize. The other one is Jack Sim, who recently was filmed talking about UN World Toilet Day. Just a little bit about Peter Morgan. He's quite an exceptional person. He's born in Britain, and at a relatively young age, in his 20s, he decided to venture off to Rhodesia. And he's a marine biologist trained in Hull, in the sort of the northern part of England. Being a biologist, it gives you the license to basically work with almost anything that is challenging, especially. And he took on, at the time, water and eventually sanitation problems. He was employed by the Blair Institute in Harare. He's a very famous man for a couple of his inventions: the bush pump, the family well, which is kind of a maintenance system for well water. His ventilated improved pit latrine, the VIP, which now actually has a, if you like, a reuse component with it. Millions of Africans have benefited from his work. He has never been really acknowledged globally before. You know about over the last 10 years, some of his sanitation work, like the Fossa Alterna, the Arborloo. There are absolutely thousands and thousands of these in different parts of rural Africa. I think the Fossa Alterna is an interesting thing. It's actually compost. And you see these situations where in a village, the chief of the village is actually putting his hands on the soil that's coming out of a Fossa Alterna. And it's proof that it's actually recycled and it has soil now. So without further ado, I think we'll go straight to this rather original recording of Peter. How do I do this? Space?
It was a total thrill and most unexpected, and a great challenge, of course, to confront for the future. I just hope that I'm a worthy candidate. So it was just quite stunning and totally surprising to me. And thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. It's in fact called a spiral tube water wheel pump, which was very magical. The discovery was very magical. And it's unknown, I think. We built some in the late 70s here. And what it does actually is it pumps water under pressure through a coil, and the water wheel is actually mounted in a river or a canal. And the amazing thing is that it pumps water under pressure, without valves and seals. I think the other one, perhaps, is the one that uses Mother Nature very well in controlling odours and flies in toilets, and that's, of course, now known as the VIP. That work was done in the early 70s. It was actually a method of controlling flies, because I am a biologist by heart, and this concept uses biology and sort of aerodynamics to control the two problems of pit toilets, I guess, odours and flies. It does it very simply, using the behaviour of flies and, of course, the effect of air currents on tubes to draw out air through the tubes. Very simple, very basic, and the way I think about it is also it's linked to the biological processes, and in this particular case, the behaviour of flies. Well, in terms of SuSanA, of course, I'm certainly not the pioneer. When I was introduced to it, some years ago now, urine diversion was the main technical answer and solution. And perhaps what I've tried to do is to expand that concept and link it to the shallow pit toilet and prove that actually SuSanA can be quite diverse. The benefits can be enormous because, well, the one thing is that the urine that we throw away in liters a minute probably has so much nitrogen in it that it's in fact can be a huge resource. And what in the very bucket science type of experiments we've performed here, we've shown quite dramatically that it can enhance the growth of vegetables, trees and maize in quite a simple way. It's the nitrogen, the nitrite in the urine is converted into the nitrate by the soil bacteria, and then that can be taken up by the plants. So you can convert urine into wood, fuel, vitamins in fruit, and the glorious trees. Well, that's the $64,000 question that thousands of people have been asking for decades. Well, my answer is that there is no single answer, that we just have to explore as many routes as there are and as many methods as there are to achieve the goal, and it's not an easy goal. In fact, I remember listening to the President John Kennedy in America saying when they were thinking of going to the moon, we choose to go to the moon not because it is easy, because it is hard. And in fact, this question is actually a hard one to solve. My personal view, of course, is that there's no single method, either in the technology or the method of proposing or using the technology, as I'm very confident about the concept of self-supply. This award has re-inspired me to carry on, try my best, in my own way. So yes, your prize has been a great stimulation to me, and thank you so much for that.
So I did actually speak with Peter a few hours ago. He's fast asleep now after a hot bath. They got delayed in Addis in the middle of the night. He will not come here, but you'll have to see him out at World Water Week.
We bought him a symbolic little present, you know, one of those torches you have on your forehead. It's very practical in Africa, especially if you want to look down in pit latrines. And we thought that he might enjoy that. It's very strong, and they have often energy cuts in Harare as well. So we thought that would be kind of a nice thing. He's not here, so we can't give him and make the little speech we were planning. But we have a card, and I will put it on another table, and you're welcome to say, write your name if you think, whatever relation you have to Peter Morgan, just write your name and congratulate him. It's a special personal gift from his working friends. Yeah.
So the other speaker is Jack Sim. He's, if you like, a leader especially in the area of social marketing.
Yeah, social marketing.
And I think that he was the reason why he took that on with the business work in that working group. And he's actually taken World Toilet Day to the UN now. So in celebration of that, it's an official UN day. And that's not a small accomplishment. So we have to congratulate Jack for that. And he has a small message here. It's on a Apple MOV, which is being run on a PC, and so it's not completely synced. It's not anybody's fault. It's just that these are two different companies that are not whatever. So away we go.
Hello everybody. I'm happy to be able to join you virtually on this meeting of SuSanA. I remember in 2007 we were preparing the first SuSanA meeting to celebrate the International Year of Sanitation of the UN in 2008. IYS was a very, very successful year. Sanitation gained prominence. At the same time, the World Toilet Organization has already been in existence for 8 years. It was founded on the 19th November 2001, and we call that day World Toilet Day. And each year, the celebration of World Toilet Days goes more and more. Last year in 2012, our outreach was 3.3 billion viewership. That is as big as one Gangnam Style every year. We think that with this year's adoption by the UN General Assembly for World Toilet Day to be an official UN day, calling it the UN World Toilet Day, we would be able to legitimize sanitation to the highest level. This very high support level means that we at SuSanA can use World Toilet Day to bring focus to sustainable sanitation, and we should all celebrate World Toilet Day 19 November in whatever ways we can. Make it something that brings sanitation to prominence. You know, we have come a long way since the time the global media would not even write about sanitation issue. In those days, water and sanitation were bundled together, and what sun means that water takes the cake. No pun intended. The effort that we have achieved today should be something that we consider only the beginning. There is still a lot of work to do, because we not just want to solve the problem of 2.5 billion people not having access to proper sanitation. We also want all excreta to be treated and not to pollute the environment. And we also want to recycle and reuse the nutrients that is inside. Use World Toilet Day to deliver sanitation for all. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Arno. Is this microphone on? Okay. Well, what couldn't have done a better pep talk than that after lunch. That was wonderful, and I think it just goes to show what can be achieved when people put their mind to something, and especially I think in the case of World Toilet Day, when others rally around something that that one organization or whatever is driving. And I think that brings us back to where we were in our discussion before the break, because when one working group lead accepts sort of the responsibility to forge ahead, when certain individuals commit the work that they're doing to the SuSanA to discuss it with others and to take it forward, that's where the value lies. And let's try to continue with that thought. Let me reopen this. Is it working? 1 second, saying not responding, that's not nice. Okay.
German thing.
Yeah, just hit that. Good. All right. So coming out of, out of our discussion before, what I was trying to do there was basically to give you a feel for what the enjoyment I've had the past 2 weeks of feeling the energy within SuSanA by talking to those different working group leads. Like we said before, we're in the process of taking that energy that SuSanA had at the outset. Here's IYS coming. We're all looking at along which streams of thematic streams we're working. And we've taken things so far, and now the world has changed around us. Things like this have happened. Yeah, both of these videos are perfect examples of where sanitation is now compared to where it was at that stage. And that's why we're sort of trying to, at this stage, maybe shake SuSanA just a little bit to get us all to fall in those places and positions where we can add the most value for taking our work forward. So the questions that I asked, I just want to quickly show you, yeah, assessing what people were doing, whether they're doing that as a co-lead or alone, whether they're actually happy in that role, is it good, is it frustrating, exactly those things we asked here before, how much time it demands, what topical interests they would have now if they were to reassess what they want to work on, where they see the future, the added value, whether things that are inactive should be closed or not. If so, what does it take to do so? And how we feel about now linking it back to this roadmap about using the energy of these working groups to bring us forward in that, and whether we have new suggestions. This assessment was on purpose very loose interviews, because the point was not to sort of tick bullets, but to really get a feel for the people, for what drives them. The time frame was in the past 2 weeks, and and at this point I just want to thank all those who at such short notice were able to do that, and the secretariat for sort of initiating this, because it was very much welcomed by the leads. It was not just one person, but it was several leads that sort of said, "Oh, we've sort of been waiting for this for a while. Finally, someone's asking these questions for how we can maybe reshape things and trying to invigorate things." The people that I spoke to are the ones that are listed here. So we were able to actually get feedback from all 12 groups, in some cases even from several people. You see in the back they were either 1-hour oral interviews, or in 2 cases it was written feedback with Andrea Nick. It was just indirect because she talked to Leif and then gave feedback through him. So let's quickly go through the questions. I don't need to go into much detail on each because we've sort of laid the groundwork before when we were discussing it. But maybe the status of the working groups at present. One thing, we can all pat ourselves on the back because we have been very productive and every group has achievements. There's one exception, which is the working group that was just started. So we're certain that you will be doing the same. On the other hand, quite a bit of red. The activity, but I think we've already changed a few of those today by people putting forward ideas. Some came into so these calls a week or 2 ago already sparked some people when they came in this morning, said, can you add this and that to the slide? And I said, you're just ruining my statistics. So they're not really correct. For a work plan, there were 2 groups, which was working group 1 and 2, which either have sort of a very detailed thing of things that they want to do, or that have some sort of concept note for how they should function. So I gave them partial points. Yeah. So just to recognize that I think people are striving to get just a little bit more structure in how they're taking things forward. We've heard from several leads today already that the co-lead issue is an issue. Yeah, that some of them are struggling alone. We have. On the left-hand side, you basically see that 4 feel like they are true co-leads. We have a few that are saying, well, we're a theoretical co-lead, but maybe one person's more inactive than the other. And we have, at present, 4 single leads. Concerning, I've just been informal and called it the happiness factor, because at the end of the day, In networks, it always drives, you need to like the people you're working with, you need to enjoy doing stuff together and networking. So in this case, that doesn't relate to liking the people or not, but the feedbacks concerning that people are saying, well, I'm not quite happy with it, in some cases is that they're perhaps, finding it tough because they don't have a co-lead or they can't get the co-lead maybe not quite as engaged. Some were saying maybe it's the terms of reference for the leads could be something that we could work on to make it a little bit more clear. That it is very time intensive when you're driving an activity to actually get that going. And of course only productive when people are interested. And in some cases, and I think this is very easy to change, some were not so aware that they could perhaps get a more easier overview through the secretariat of who the contacts are within their group to make better use of the group as such. But many were very just excited about what they felt they had produced already, so the achievements are definitely rewarding. The time that it demands, people say, just so to encourage certain people that are doing something, or that maybe want to take up such a thing. Some have said, of course, when you're finalizing a document and you're really working and toiling at, filing away at words, it does, of course, need quite a bit of work, but since quite a few at present are dormant, for some it's not a lot of time that's currently being put in. Then I asked them to say, okay, now put this out the window. I know you signed up to this 5 years ago or whatever, and you were excited and you drove it to the first fact sheet, but let's just say you were to sign up again. Where would you go? And the interesting thing here was that a small group perhaps realized, my work situation has changed. Maybe I've realized on a personal level that this is not a role I can do. So we have a few that said, well, maybe it's better I perhaps give up a lead. We have a group of 3, maybe a few still on the verge, that are saying this is exactly, but there were 3 that had a clear statement of, I really, really like this working group. This is the only thing I want to work on. That is my topic. And we have 8 persons who basically, said, well, if I were to have a total pick, perhaps I'd go somewhere else. So, we have, which in the case now of Jonathan, of course, as you see, sanitation as a business is very close. So it's more a call for, well, let's take a part of that working group and bring it a little bit closer to this one, because then we could really do something. In some cases, with some people, it's actually moving somewhere, maybe in a totally different area, like Christoph Lüthi, who is a really big driver and sort of driving the different cities things. For him, suddenly he wanted to move closer, perhaps also to the economic group, and he said, well, these types of costings, or maybe standardized costings would be something, standardization would be something that really interests him. With Jack, I said before, maybe focusing a little bit more concretely on World Toilet Day, but at the same time saying I'm not really a lead, so more in a non-leading position. Carol McCreary, really interested in what the emergency group is doing and saying what in the USA, she works very closely with FEMA, so the Federal Emergency Agency, and basically saying a lot of things that the emergency group is doing, we could be doing a lot of exchange from development countries to the US and vice versa. So it was just really interesting in these discussions to feel this energy that people were bringing forward. In the case of Robert from GTO, who's currently sort of involved in as a co-lead in 2 groups, he basically said, I'd like to be involved in some other groups at present, but in that case more, bringing in more energy there, but perhaps not as a lead position. So it is this was a part of the call that I always found very, very energizing, because you could really feel the passion of certain people for topics, but you're basically thinking, okay, maybe you're riding the wrong horse, or you're currently in the conducting seat of the wrong train, but we could be getting so much more as SuSanA out of these individuals. So the question this was one that we very vaguely always sort of touched on. Many see great potential in the working groups, particularly the preparation of products, because people streamline their thinking. People are working together on a common vision of something, and sometimes, as Madeleine said before, also fight about certain issues, but that's a productive part of the process. It was interesting, one individual comment basically stated, well, being a working group lead is excellent for fundraising issues, because if you really want to drive an issue forward, bringing a product also into SuSanA is an excellent thing for if you apply for funding from the EU, for example, and this is a product that you're actively wanting to really discuss with people in SuSanA, to take on a true lead role of involving people in such a discussion, to really bring a topic, a paper to a consensus amongst a larger group. When at the end it gets branded, for the donor it's very nice to know this is going to be distributed through SuSanA because this is now a SuSanA product and other people have used it. So, so there's perhaps that is a little bit of a treat or an inspiration for some people to say there's, there are certain rewards for accepting this responsibility. However, many sort of did feel that certain priorities have shifted. Obviously, the landscape has shifted. So, and there were many ideas for small improvements. Yeah, like we heard before, where do I actually find the contacts? How can I get an approach? Some didn't really know. There was a mailing list. So there were small things where you could sort of see a lead came into a certain position. There was a small thing in the briefing that to them they maybe missed, and there's just potential in sort of informing everyone. Yeah, and some of them are using it to distribute results. A thing that blew me away that I wasn't aware of is how big these working groups are, yeah, with people signing up. To me, it was always a working group is 10 people sitting around a table and working on a paper. Obviously, there's not 1,300 people working actively on a paper in working group 4, but there are a lot of people listening, and there's obviously, yeah, a huge distribution channel just in that. And when you're really looking to call on a resource, there are a lot of people out there that might be helpful. This is where some of the working groups leads said, it would be really good as a lead to have sort of a list of who's exactly on that. So I just know, there's a person in WHO or there's a person in this organization that's interested, which would be available, but some didn't know that they would have it. So then the question sort of came. Yes, please.
Yeah, just a quick question on working group 4. I saw Chris's name there. Who's co-leading that group now? Charles.
Yeah, of course. This morning I showed the list with all the leads. These were just the people that I was able to talk to. Okay. Yeah, I'd sent it out to everyone, and then unfortunately some people couldn't participate or reply in that short time frame. Okay. But everyone was mailed.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I think just the high rate of, and I didn't send reminder emails. Yeah, I sent one email and all those people replied, which I think shows a lot of ownership and responsibility on the part of the leads also. Yeah, it's a two-week period and one email. Okay, so concerning inactive groups, and I mean this was, and I'd asked some of them later, did you feel my questions were leading? Because I realized, especially if it's sort of an informal talk, it may be. And the question here was basically, yeah, it didn't say, do you think they should be, but it was the question, do you feel an inactive working group, if it's doing nothing, could be closed? And one person basically said, well, I think we should close everything down and just reboot and reform. One person said, I don't think we should close any because it's very important. These are the issues that SuSanA represents and they need to be visible. And there was, so one said reboot and one said definitely keep it as it is. And basically 8 were swaying, yeah, which means we're basically saying, well, you can close it if it's inactive. We would totally accept that, but it was neither a yes, it should all be closed or not. One group, and this is the one that basically said don't close any, said that a large part of their justification, and this is okay because they said I could reveal it, it's the groundwater group. They said, unfortunately, we're not in Stockholm, we're at groundwater conferences. We don't always come to the water conferences, so we're never really there, and we're not really engaging with the group, and that's why we're sort of, we feel a little bit detached, but we're happy that we're a part of it, and we're, attending our library and making sure that's up to date because we want to know the topic is there. And ideas came up that they were the ones very interested in knowing who is on that list so that they know who they can actually contact that are also in the sanitation sector and interested in this. And when you go up to how many people are signed up, their groundwater group has 600 people. So they're saying, wow, who are they? How can we get in touch with them? From those 600, many are listeners. That's good. They were happy with that. But maybe there are 10 experts. Can we find those 10 experts? Can we maybe make sort of a, and here we're coming to the first step of maybe recommendations, can we make a core group of experts, and if they're all willing to put their name on the website, as long as they're okay with being mailed once in a while, for them that was a good way of sort of showing, here's some expertise for this topic. Yeah. And then the question, if working group could be closed, I put the if behind because it wasn't a, how would we do it? And basically there was consensus that this should only be done in agreement with the lead, of course. The secretariat can't suddenly say, okay, we're closing you. If no other lead can be found, there should sort of be the effort to find someone else to take over if a lead doesn't want to do that anymore. And we will have that situation now as some groups are left without a lead. And then we'd have to go through this process and say, would someone like to come on board? After consultation with the members, which would be exactly that, you're asking them, do you want to take this on? And obviously, if no work is going on, if work was going on, then someone's leading something. How do you feel about the engagement in the strategic topics? And now we're beginning to link it back to the roadmap, because in the roadmap, you have these, as I stated before and as we heard this morning, you have these three strategic topics, post-2015 SDG, Nexus, and the functional sanitation ladder, which are placeholders for maybe in this process people come up with more. Yeah, could be. But the question was, can we take such an issue and place it to the working groups and say, please, all comment on this, or no, otherwise maybe everyone make a statement on that from your perspective. Yeah, so for these three topics was at least what I asked. And basically 4 of them said straight out, no, that's not possible. It's difficult enough for me to excite the people for stuff that they're excited in. I can't sort of come with stuff from the outside and say, here, please do this. 8 of them said, I think that's really valuable. We should be doing something like that, but do it as a separate group. Open it as something separate, people excited about Nexus, and then you contact the other working groups and draw some people from there and there that link to it. And then, and 2 people basically said, oh, that might work. That would be, And then we have suggestions for new working groups, and here it's just sort of without prioritization. It's just things that people named: sanitation system risk assessment, sanitation safety planning, fecal sludge management, pit emptying, standardization, costing, BOQ, standardized utility development, Terra Preta, World Toilet Day, resource recovery, reuse, policy papers to influence governments, case studies, more of that, political groups, don't know what that meant, gender governance, menstrual hygiene management. And so that was now in a quick way, but I think you got a feeling this morning of how people sort of felt that from the room, and this sort of maybe boils it down for where we stand. So at this point, I'd like to take at least a few moments of amendments from those leads who participated, whether they sort of feel that was correctly portrayed. Where's the microphone so we can hand it to Dorothy? Oh, Trevor.
Thank you. Just an amendment for me. I think really this question of, do we want to have a list of topics for a strategic? For the visibility of SuSanA, these topics should be considered, and that's a little bit how it is now, or should we just have groups according to the interests we have and where people are interested in working on? And I think a lot of people are afraid of closing down workshops because of that, like the groundwater working group, because they're afraid it doesn't get enough attention anymore then. So, but this maybe can be addressed by somehow restructuring a little bit the roadmap or the communication of SuSanA to say these fields are relevant and the secretary can be contacted for it, or there is a space still on the website with some expert names and contacts, and working groups are really there if people want to work.
Okay.
It's a danger as well.
Yeah. But I think there's a potential in it too. I've sort of written, oops, throwing stuff all over the place. I've written 2 papers. One of them, you're basically saying, are we choosing the topic list out of strategic reasons, or are we choosing the topics out of interest, so that dividing up of the groups, yeah? And in a way, that's a versus discussion, but it can also be, I think, both. And you were just saying that if we tweak how we communicate certain issues or whatever, so yeah.
May I just add? I don't know if the others as well.
You just have the microphone, so you go ahead, and then I'll head to Arno and then to Trevor.
Out of interest, when we recall how it happened, it happened that we said that who has what as an urgent task on his table? And is there only one person who has that in his organization on his table, or is there more than one person? And if there's more than one person, then please talk together and form a working group. Look at it. So we had on one hand not interest, but urgency, you may say, or workload. That's slightly different from interest. It should meet interest, yes. And on the other hand, we had this, if we want to have sustainability in a broader sense, then we are forced to be in a way complete. We cannot talk about sustainability in a broad sense and then only cover one aspect of it. So we had the duty to be somehow complete, and the other thing to do something that we have to do anything. So that compromise was it. And to revisit that now is fine, but I think it will be the same logic from my point of view.
Okay, so I'm adding the paper must be, that your point is basically it must be complete, the picture. You can't deal with one. Sustainability must be complete. Arno?
It is very impressive that we have over 1,000 members in a working group, but those are not working groups.
Yeah.
Those are networks, and it's not being exploited yet. It just seems to me that the forum, the SuSanA discussion forum, should be where some of these, let's say, less active groups should go to actually explore how these identified sub-networks could be working together. One of the things that could be done is you just compare activities, and then I think what might come out of it is some needs. One of the things that could also be examined is whether one could run webinars. Because, I mean, when we started this thing in 2007, there wasn't bandwidth and there wasn't server capacities. So we thought a working group was just like a little group that would sit in a room like this. But now it's different. So the success of the Gates exercise tells me that we have to be using some of these electronic meeting systems.
Okay.
I think if you talk in those terms, you probably get money for it as well. So.
Okay. So we've marked down webinars, comparing activities more, working groups with 1,000 members or networks. We should be using that more. We're not using it. Trevor?
Yeah, I think I just want to add to maybe what Arno has already said, but sort of my take on it. I mean, yes, these working groups, I think you can look at them as large mailing lists, and I think we should maybe just promote a different view on the working groups, not necessarily get rid of them. Yeah? And when I mean a different view, I don't mean that they must stop working or they must work or this, that, and the next thing. What I think is that these working groups should be viewed as enabling environments. They should be viewed as a mailing list, as a network, as Arno says, where you can then say, I have an initiative. It fits within this thematic area. No, it doesn't fit the title of the working group precisely, but this is where I'm going to go and look for my team members to form a cross-organizational, multifunctional team. And that's how these working groups should be viewed. And those initiatives and that drive does not have to come only from the lead or the co-lead. The members in the working group can approach the co-lead and the lead and say, hey, is it okay if I run with this? And then it can be run with by other folks.
Okay. But so you're saying that by labeling it differently or using it differently, offering it in a different way, it can thereby be latched on by...
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, I don't think you have to have such a stringent or such a concrete sort of, this is the definition of a working group.
Mm-hmm.
You know, okay. We're supposed to be dynamic and flexible,
but
let's move with the environment and adapt.
Having said that, one thing that I didn't put on that, you know, the groundwater group obviously, but other groups also, they want, you know, here comes the student out of university, he finds sanitation interesting, he's looking, there's a parallel to my thing, and then he wants to get on this train of a working group, and the name implies it's working. And then he's in there and it's not perhaps doing anything at that moment. So that's why I think, because you're saying, we could still call it a work. Maybe what we call it is at that point, and how you communicate it is important.
I think back in the day when they were formed, as Arno said, there were less ways of engaging. Mm-hmm. Now there's so many multimedia channels that one can engage.
That's true.
And it's a case of saying, hey, well, let's chuck up the working groups and let's make it easier for the members in these large lists to engage with each other. And when it's not a huge initiative that has to have the working group lead's approval, and they just want to talk amongst each other, well, then let them go for it.
Okay. Could you hand the microphone? And I'll take you next.
I mean, you can use the separation of task force in year 2, like you separated the task force from the secretariat, and maybe you can create like a task force in the working group, saying that this is the task force in this group, and the others are like just the members that's like communicating and using the network.
Okay.
Like that might be an idea.
Okay. So that in this case, when we're working on the roadmap and bringing in task forces and defining them, we then have to realize we're now discussing maybe putting task forces inside working groups as well. So when that's being defined, we obviously need to be thinking about that. Conrad? Sorry, no. Is this directly to this, or because otherwise? Okay, and then. Sorry.
I mean, we were. I think we were developing the idea that the task forces, what we call task forces, would be more appropriate for the strategic topics, which would be overarching and not on the level of working groups. While when you are talking about a task force in a working group, you are talking about a sort of operative group. Yeah. This is not a task force as such.
See, and that's just where I think the only reason I was highlighting it, not saying this is right or wrong, but it's just, it would be interesting to see what do people expect when they see a label. If they see a working group and they come inside and it's not working, someone gets disappointed. A task force to some people means they have a task, they're working on that, and when that publication is done, they disperse. If we're looking for perhaps what we were calling a task force at present, where we're saying it's mandated in some way to do an overarching thing for all of SuSanA, maybe that's a strategic group, or maybe we need to give it some other more clearly defined name. Please.
Yeah. What I feel is the thing that come in my mind is like, what's the catch? Like, if the coordinators of each working group, like in your surveys, you mentioned like they have a lack of interest, and that's the only catch they had. Like, they're not being awarded or not being paid for it, and they're working for 5 years. Of course, they're going to be fed up with that. So it's really important to keep the working group going, that they have a good interest, and that's the only catch they have.
Yeah.
And that they should work with more, or they should be given something that they want, if you wanted to see it in a higher level. And other thing is like how...
So you're saying that that it should be clearly communicated that as soon as they're interested in another issue, they should be free to take that energy to that other issue. Is that what you're... So, because currently I think many people are perhaps keeping their lead role a little bit out of a bad feeling. They don't want to end up saying, sorry everyone, I'm letting you down, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, and also, like, how do you think these groups are different from any other groups? Like, you have a lot of groups on LinkedIn or many other platforms where the same issues are being discussed. And they're reaching, and somehow, like, those groups get dead anyway because of lack of interest that people get, and they get, like, tired of discussing same thing over and over, and it doesn't give any results. So this is what happens. And also, like, what strategy do you have to promote your work? Of course, you come up with different titles of topics that can interest many, but since it does not reach to many of the people who have stake in it, so no one addressed those issues. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that. Say again? Yeah, please. If someone, as I was saying this morning, this is an open-ended process. If someone has a very clearly defined way for how they wish to take this forward, please do say it, and then we have the freedom to use the energy in that way.
Yeah, just one comment. As you mentioned very clear this morning, we're an informal network, so sometimes some conventional definition of what should be a group and how it should be called doesn't really fit. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. We have to fit the function, not the form. Yeah. So, but I think Arno's point that, and in this direction is a good strategy to think. Okay, we have networks, and these are networks for all the relevant and the topics that we want to be complete for sustainability, But still, I mean, these networks can do work within a subgroup or sub-working group. But to call it only network would also maybe giving them more or less motivation to start working together, right? Because this to know the organizations that are doing something like EAWAG, etc., and then they know, oh, I'm the lead of this group, so. Yeah, maybe I push it a little bit in direction of SuSanA, what I'm doing,
But it's interesting just the thought that although we haven't changed what's happening, we're just changing how we're viewing it and labeling it, and suddenly certain people feel relief or eased or see an opportunity and so on. So what you call it, especially for outsiders that we're trying to, especially if we're saying we want to have impact towards policymakers, towards people that we're reaching out to, that labeling suddenly probably has more importance than we're realizing the whole time. You have the microphone because you want to say something?
What is the difference? I think the difference was that you follow the workload of organization involved. If you really follow the workload of organization involved, they will work. And I think it's a good moment now between the International Year of Sanitation and another pressure which I expect around 2015 to sort of revisit, think out of the box, and think, especially in this 5 years, what happened to this social networks and Twitters and so on. That's as well shocking in a sense, and to as well think how to use that, what is appropriate on that, and to be prepared, because I think it's too early now to know how these global discussions will trickle down to all these followers and topics and working groups. But I think we can start being prepared that something will trickle down and that we will then be very fast in reorganizing ours. So I think for that it's a very good exercise.
Okay. I can't fit this all on one card, but there was, the point that not only sanitation sector has changed, but also the communication and everything, how thing is being used, I think is important, Thanks, Konrad.
I feel a certain tendency not to tackle the problem. Let's be logic. We have 5 sustainability criteria. Somehow working groups must be linked to them. in a certain sense. Then you might have areas of interest, very specific, probably very, very, very challenging, very interesting. The question you can ask yourself for such a working group is, very nice, but is it relevant compared to promoting, upscaling, access to sustainable sanitation? There you will very shortly come to a point saying, very interesting, nice to have, but this does not really bring the goal forward. Yeah? Some people can deal with that, but that should probably not be a working group. The other one is you have some strategic topics, like the MDG discussion, or Nexus, or things like that. So there you have criteria to say what should be relevant, and I think it is possible. You see, this is the left side, this is how it has been, there is some dynamics there, and now this is the right side. What is relevant today? That should be feasible. I think we better do that. Yeah, I think it is possible to do that, and I think it makes sense to do it. And it will end up by reshuffling. Yeah, probably you don't need 12. I'm saying 7 or 8 could do the job. Yeah, some of those in 5 minutes I can tell you. Okay, operation and maintenance could be very nicely fitting to technology systems, and is another aspect of it. It can be integrated. Yeah, if we want to advance. I don't know if we have to pass a decision here, yeah, but we should at least agree on how we tackle it. I mean, then the group can give a mandate to the secretariat or think tank. Can you make us a proposal for a new structure of working groups? We communicate that with the working group leads, get their feedback. He has prepared them now. They will understand why are we doing it, and we'll get a feedback, and then we can tackle this dilemma of closing something, losing, and not deciding at all. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Ina, and then Madeleine, and then I'd see how many more comments there are, and then instead of we stagnate on this discussion, maybe we take one further step.
Yes, I want to take the thoughts from Konrad a bit further. I think there are two aspects. One is the goals that he talked about external. So what does SuSanA wants to communicate externally in terms of, for example, putting on those MDG agenda, the strategic topics, or like Arne said, being prepared. And one aspect is the internal demand or goals. I think as we see, there's so many people inside the working groups, they might have very different interests being in that working group than the SuSanA as an overall network has to the outside. Maybe I missed a little bit the discussion what members in the morning, but talking about working groups or strategic groups, I think it will help maybe to divide between how you want to SuSanA working on the outside or towards the outside and with members inside.
Okay.
Comment. Thank you.
Okay. So making that difference of communicating out, and because I think what's been really valuable in this is I think we all already feel a little bit more comfortable, at least with what we have. Yeah, I mean this Christian Rieck from GIZ, for example, made the recommendation in this process. He called me up and he said, well, I think to link them, maybe they should have almost like a set date every month, and all the working group leads, they sort of talk. And after talking to all the people, I said, that's the last thing they want, because right now they feel, and I asked Jonathan this morning, he goes, oh my gosh, because it was sort of this thing, why am I going to be on a call and say nothing happened? But if you're turning it around to what Arno said before, can you harvest somehow an overview of what are people working on and somehow communicate that to others and use that more to link those people that are doing the same thing? You're shifting it to, and it suddenly gains a value with the same constellations. Sorry, please.
Thank you very much. I'm just curious, like if we have like only one group, not like 12 subgroup, if we prepare like each lead and co-lead, they make one strong group itself to the work, and then subgroup each 12. Okay. Maybe it will work more efficiently, I think.
Okay. On the structure, the way it is right now, the leads are actually in exactly what you're suggesting. They're together in a core group where they basically, we have that structure already, where there is a core group of these people coordinating or supposed to be coordinating. I think what we need to work at is tweaking how they can best coordinate with each other, how can they use the resource that it delivers, and then it is almost what you're suggesting. They're latching better onto each other, and then basically have these separate work streams within
Yeah, that's why this morning I was asking the coordination, how it's going on. That's why each and every presentation, like every group presentation, is something lacking, the coordination. There is nothing inside each presentation, actually.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're doing this exercise. And at this point, I want to apologize to all those who are here for the first time today and are not getting as much topical input. Come back next time, because SuSanA does that, definitely, yeah. But it's just, we're just at this interesting point, and I think the fact that you're here today and get to know SuSanA and how it works in such an intricate way will help you to even latch on better in the future, because now you really understand how we tick.
Well, SuSanA has its history and how we have worked, and depending on the work task of the groups, we have had calls, we have had meetings with the leads, and we have had frequent meetings where also it's a way of the leads of getting together and report, and even though sometimes not reporting much, but sometimes reporting a lot. And we have had full understanding of that, because we can't tell anyone to do this work. This is something that we're not paid here. We're doing it because it's in our organization's interest. It's our work we are working on, and to do it will add value to the work we have. We can get resources into our work. There are, though, certain groups here that I babysit, but I still think are very important, and they have actually done a lot of work. But those working, for example, in the working group on community and schools are usually practitioners and people in the field.
Okay.
And it's very difficult for them actually to organize the working group, because they don't. You know, everyone who has been out trying to implement a program or a project, it's really, that is what occupies you. So I think there's, but we have kept this group alive, and but it has been active also. So the thing is to where the lead actually plays a very important role is to link. To get this linkage with people that have time and doing this research or whatever with the practitioners and feed in, and that can be done with interns. I think we're back to the morning discussions, but it's important. So by the end of this, I would like to say there's a little bit of different cases for different working groups. I mean, community, rural, and schools, whatever. You know, there's no end to what you can work within that group. Doesn't need to have specific new topics for everyone. It can be. We are doing menstruation, we're doing schools, we're doing gender in that group.
Okay. I think that's something we saw this morning on Working Group 1 also, which is a different type of group providing a different type of service. Now you're saying some have practitioners, some have people from the university, some have... So different groups have different types of people, and hence the role of the groups are also different. I think that's something we must accept, and thereby can't judge all groups by the same standards, because the output will be different as well. And depending on what type of group it is, maybe that suggestion this morning, how can you use interns, how can you involve students to drive a certain thing, might be more relevant for some groups than for others.
Can I chip in something?
Yes, please. You have the microphone power.
I mean, the working groups have been working together to produce the fact sheet. That's been like a working group product. Other products have been mainly driven by someone who's already paid to do it and get some help from colleagues who are interested in it. But it's mainly, you cannot expect the working group to do unpaid work, like big books, if they're not paid to do it. But what we could expect from the working group is to define the key topics for others to take up, I think. I mean, let's say for the working group 5, which I'm involved in, food security, it could be nice to have like a list that we have found together with members, like 5 key master's thesis titles that someone could pick up, or 5 key documents that we're lacking that someone could like go to a donor for. And all groups could do that. What are like the 5 key themes we would like to have investigated? So it becomes more like a SuSanA. Otherwise, it will be like hijacked by individual interests. But if we can, in consensus, define what we think is interesting, then others can take that up. That's my idea.
Arno, and then I raise my hand.
No, I listened to Trevor. You know, he's kind of like in the middle of all the traffic, and he's seen SuSanA develop over the last few years. So when he says enabling platform, that's what it actually is. But it does lots of other things. It's a knowledge broker. It's a knowledge sharer. It's actually a place where you can find out about tenders, about research funds. What I think each working group should do, and that would be a very interesting thing to do on SuSanA Forum, is actually to create a capacity statement. And that's basically filling in on maybe a Google matrix what the capacities of that group is. And why I'm saying that is because I think donors want to check the quality of their work, and they will go to a neutral platform like SuSanA to find the best experts at a certain price. They will pay a SWAT team to go out and check out a project. And I think that may turn out to be a driver in these working groups. Okay. I don't think IWA has that kind of capacity. I don't think the Collaborative Council has it either. So this is like a completely neutral platform, and it could make itself available for this kind of quality assurance, which is turning out to be the make and break of development aid, all the bank work, etc. And it's a sleeping giant. So I think that would drive these groups into doing things that they're very passive about right now.
Okay. Is that, I have a microphone. Maybe at that point, that suggestion, using the groups to gather capacity and then to sort of, it's almost like quality checking, that you're offering, is that? Yeah? Maybe that's something that on the one hand we could ask one of the leads to now sort of comment on. Do you think that's something that your working group could be doing? And Raul already has the microphone, so maybe that's not what he wanted to say, but the question I'll pose to him. And then since we have Sita as a donor in the room, maybe the question, is that something that you could imagine as being interesting for a donor, to have a platform where you're bundling all the knowledge and stuff around one issue, and they're saying we're sort of setting the standards, or saying how it's or selling ourselves as that knowledge stream. So if that's okay.
Well, from my side, I think it's very resource intensive task to take up by a working group, and also putting a stamp of SuSanA on it as an accreditation would be difficult, and it's taking up a lot of responsibility in that case.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, okay. I wouldn't like to change the topic, so I'll just pass it off and speak later.
Okay, okay. Would that be okay that I pose the question, or?
Yes, of course, but I think I just have to process it to actually think of something clever.
Okay, that's great. Okay, if we're on that topic, otherwise Raul gave up was taken.
The word of sleeping giant and what all we can do and how we can get funds for SuSanA comes again and again. And I'm not that I'm saying that's not good, but at the moment we are neutral because we don't have money, and we are neutral because it's all sort of plus work, and we are neutral because it's only that people can do, which is in any case on their table. I'm not saying we shouldn't look for other opportunities, and with the size that we've grown to and with the knowledge that is together, that's more and more obvious that we should. But I want to make the point that this will suddenly change the character of the network, and we have to think twice how to do this without becoming a consulting or whatsoever. How to do that in a way that doesn't spoil the values we have.
Otherwise, if on that topic or not, who's on that topic still with the comment, Jonathan? Huh? Oh, that's okay. Excellent.
You guys are hogging the mic too much.
I'm coming over here now.
Okay, good job. No, I mean, maybe another way to think of it. I mean, this is a lot like the process. Even if you're, especially if you're, an external person coming to the site, it's like, whoa, there's a lot going on there. Maybe it's not a matter of. I mean, maybe all of these are very relevant. I'm imagining they are, and it seems like there's good stuff going on in all of them. But maybe one way to think about it is having a couple of buckets that these things all go into. And I mean, the ones that come to mind for me are like capacity, finance, demand creation, regulation. Those are, I think, some very critical buckets to look at for sustainable sanitation. And then maybe these could somehow fit into different buckets like that. And that might be a way to manage it. But it doesn't seem like the system's really broken. So that was my other question is, it sounds like we're having this long conversation as if the system's broken, and it doesn't really seem like it is.
Okay. Well, maybe that's part of the process, understanding that it isn't. But great, okay. And maybe that's my first sign to curb this discussion in a second, and then we're done.
Sure, well, mine partly is ditto to that, is that it seems some of it is that we're getting stuck on semantics around the groups. I think it's phenomenal that in such a short time it's grown the membership as you have. And what has appealed to me about SuSanA is that it has been a network that's been created by the members really coming up and coming forward with what my organization or your organization is working on right now and needs to connect with other people. And that is the strength of this network. And my concern and what I would hope does not happen through the process is that that it gets flipped around and then it gets driven by some need to create something for the external world, so to speak. So what appeals to me is that it has been organic, and I'd like to see it stay that way, that it is driven by the interest of the members to bring forward what their skills are, what their interests are, what barriers we're facing. And in that, we connect with others to help remove those barriers. And ultimately, what we want to see is that practitioners on the ground are able to execute on their programs more effectively.
Okay, excellent. And since there's sort of been two comments, and I know there are other hands, but two comments that sort of went in the direction we should curb this discussion. I always like to take something like that seriously and then actually do this at that point. I do feel that was very valuable, though, because I think it has opened our eyes for seeing things in a different way. Some people maybe don't agree all that much how valuable it was, but I do know that many did. I would like to pose one final question, because I think then in 10 minutes I do hand over to Dorothee, and then that slot is over. Ah, of course. Did you want to reply to that question? Of course.
Yes, well, the thing is, I didn't really come here today to look for a funding opportunity. So I came here out of personal interest.
That's not how my question was intended.
Yeah, I know. So I don't really feel that I'm the person to say that. Would that be interesting for SIDA to fund? First of all, and then secondly, we also have to regard to our strategies and our objectives in what we can fund. So
yeah, of course. No, it was more meant on a general level, whether that might be something such a quality control or whatever might be appealing to donors or whatever. But I didn't want to push you in a corner, and then you're supposed to come back next time.
Well, then I will just rest.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you. See you next time. Anu.
The reason why I brought this up is because there's an unpublished or very little known audit, which was published, well, actually it was released a year ago. It was not at all in the press. It's an EU audit of 10 years of WASH projects in sub-Saharan Africa. It's about €1 billion that were spent. They took a sample and they basically said that half of the projects are dysfunctional for different reasons. There was a debate within the EU about the fact that none of the sustainable criteria used in EU programs were applied. And in many cases, there's a lot of capex, investments, stuff is installed, and zero training, no maintenance, no parts, things like that. That is just the top of the iceberg. And if we don't deal with that, then the banks and the development agencies will lose their capacities and then their license to do this stuff sooner or later. So it's a group like us that says, hey, wait a minute, we're going to hold on to this stuff and make sure your work is half decent. So that's why I'm saying it.
Work groups are generating a lot of fact sheets. My question is, what happened to them? And if they are just on the SuSanA website, then it's very pity actually, because awareness is as marketing, and it has to be in all work groups. So when you create fact sheets, it has to be published to the public. I mean, everywhere. It has to be distributed as much as possible in order to make awareness on all those issues. Otherwise, your fact sheets are worthless.
And this they have been in a book, and they have been distributed through all sorts of channels. Obviously, there's always ways to perhaps even increase that.
It has to be effective. Otherwise, I mean, it will not reach to the people who are really affected.
But I think and that was also one thing that I think that survey showed. You're going to get a different set of answers if you survey the people in this room what the benefit of certain products are, and if you survey the people sitting in countries, sitting in implementing organizations, sitting in a government, and they'll have used different tools, and sometimes we're not aware of where these things have actually ended up. The one final, because at that point I think I will close that topic, but the one question I would just like to sort of leave with us, and that would be the last thing I take a few words on, is SuSanA has, and I think we're almost forgetting it, it all relies on 5 sustainability criteria and this vision document. It's something very simple. There are a few sentences. Yeah? They're not even fact sheets, they're not long things. And I think one thing we should consider, and that's perhaps one of the most important questions, is there something similarly simple looking, but actually deep, that we could be bringing together and defining. Yeah? One example, without wanting to bias that now, but by saying it I am, is sort of that functional sanitation ladder. Yeah? I don't know if everyone knows it, but it's sort of not saying, oh, here's the flush toilet at the top and here's this, and then we're going by technologies, but it's basically saying by the function. I'm keeping the human away from the feces. I'm saying that it's being collected in a safe way, it's treated in a safe way, I'm killing the pathogens, and then at some point maybe I'm doing environmental benefit and whatever. A way of looking at the world of sanitation that's different to how, it's currently some people view it that way, but it's not the standard. In the past, people didn't look at sustainability for sanitation for having these 5 criteria, now they do. And I think perhaps something like that to be thinking about, is there something that looks simple when you explain it, but it's actually quite complex and it'd be difficult for us to agree on, but it is a simple sort of package at the end that we could then, and that would be going into policy and into other things, because suddenly people are saying, ooh, all these sanitation experts have agreed the world looks like this in these few sentences or in this box. I don't know if that's, as moderator I gave myself sort of that last statement, unless someone wants to comment.
Well, I was actually going to ask if we could see those 5 criteria again, but it may be hard for you to get back to them. They were phrased really nicely and simply. And I was also going to ask, are the fact sheets generally in several languages or mostly just English?
It depends, I guess, on the working groups to what degree they then have the capacity to translate. Some are available in more languages than others.
And we found them right here.
Okay. They're very central to SuSanA, and you'll find them all over the place as soon as you stumble across SuSanA.
Are they protected with Creative Commons protection or other sorts of protection? I know copyright is not enough along those lines. It doesn't give a sense of what's involved. But one does not want to get misquoted, have material removed and made meaningless because of this attribution.
I thought fact sheets are open source.
Yeah, the fact sheets are open source, and I think when it comes to sort of the criteria, it's just a basic founding thing that everyone in SuSanA agreed to, because that's what you're basically signing up to when you become a member, and hence that underlies sort of everything.
Yeah, just that was already answered that. I think in response to the question earlier about the fact sheets, I think the idea is that the fact sheets are seen as a resource material for members. There isn't the resources from the SuSanA secretariat to be able to publish these and disseminate these as more widely than they are already. But members of SuSanA can draw from those materials and then, pull out from an open source that material and then republish it. I think that's right, but I have to ask. Yeah. Just a couple of very quick points. No, you want to finish, don't you? So.
Actually, I am finished, and it works very well because I was going to hand over to you anyway, because we've talked a lot about sort of the post-2015 discussion. It's always sort of been around the room, and we had you as a speaker on that topic in the program, so that if it's sort of something that we felt was worthwhile putting in, and that would fit perfectly with the timetable now. So if you want,
I'll lead on to that then with one comment.
Then hand over to Dorothea after. You close it then, please.
Okay. I just wanted to pick up on a point I made earlier about, I think, linking with practitioners and a lot of people within SuSanA, these statistics show that how many people are involved in these different working groups, and it was a surprise to yourself, and it's a surprise to many of us how many people are part of these working groups, because we quite often only associate a few people with those working groups and forget there's hundreds of other people who are there. And then I have to correct myself, because I actually discovered I do have some. I was sent as a lead. I was sent the list of people within the group, but it's a bit old, so I haven't had an up-to-date version of it. But one idea we discussed, which didn't come across in the presentation, was greater visibility for SuSanA members, so that they know who else is in the group, so they know that if they post something to their group, who is it going to? And also, if you go to a conference or an event and you meet somebody and you automatically recognise them or their name, because they're part of the SuSanA community, would be quite nice. And I think that would stimulate great activity. Anyway, you wanted me to talk about...
Well, and yes, I do, but just because you were saying that, I think we'll send that around with the minutes when it goes. I did have, obviously, in doing this study, I did have some sort of possible scenarios for how things could go further. Yeah, you're closing some of the groups, you're regrouping, you're taking a bulldozer to everything and relaunching. I did have a whole bunch of recommendations and so on that people can then look at in the minutes, which reflect some of what Jonathan was just saying, that maybe on a website, when you are signing up to a group, if technology permits, he had the idea maybe you could sort of click your topics of interest and the country you're in. And so if I'm also working in Zambia and I'm looking for another person that's working on groundwater, I would somehow be able to link with others, something like that, by having tags to different, which makes it, I guess, like a whatever. So there are just other recommendations that I either typed because they were said this morning in the first session, or things that came out of the interviews that are also included in that. And then I guess coming out of this, we can all reflect upon that. So yeah, thanks from my side. That was great, with so much energy in the room, and I'll hand over to you.
Okay, do you want you go ahead?
Are you putting up some slides?
Well, yeah, you asked me not to, but it's actually
quite
hard.
It's
quite hard, the
yes,
complexity of this. I'm not going to go into it in great detail, but I think I do need to just highlight a couple of points with
So you'll need some time to put
No, it's there. I'm just putting it onto this.
Okay.
fly at this.
So as we have a moderator, and at the same time you are somehow the chair, but I'm still saying thank you to you, because I think that was a really in-depth and fruitful discussion that we had. And we have now two. Yeah, well, that you have two roles in a. So maybe that's difficult. So Jonathan, now we talked many times now that this 2015 is something special. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. And you'll give us a glimpse.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick glimpse.
A glimpse, how it could influence the work of SuSanA, and how SuSanA could position itself towards it, and then what's the process. It's a big thing, and maybe we shouldn't. Well, you'll do that. And
okay.
After that, I understood that you will talk a bit about, what we will talk about, more practical, the Gates fund, and what are the influences, and what have you done on the forum. Yes? Okay, and that's it for that session. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Arnie. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I also discussed on speaking to Thilo about the role of SuSanA in terms of sort of influence. How much do we influence policy? And personally, I think we could focus more on not ignoring that, but we should focus more on practitioners, because to some extent, irrespective of a lot of the international policy, you know, a lot of SuSanA members have their day-to-day problems to address, and international policy is up there, and they say, well, I've still got these problems to deal with. So, however, I do think we do need to be, we can play a role in both mediating, communicating between members of SuSanA and the kind of the discussions going on at higher level about these international political goals, for example, and also, and for those who are not going to be part of that process, for them to understand what's coming out of that process. I'll just show us a few quick slides. I've been playing a role as from IWA side in the UN Water Wastewater Task Force. These slides are from UN Water and not IWAs. So very quickly, water, as you'll see on the far right, is one of the proposed Sustainable Development Goals. These are not yet approved. The conference in Budapest in October will politically approve the proposed targets, and each target has a set of, each goal, has a set of targets and indicators. So I'll focus on the water and then drill down a little bit so you've got an idea of what's involved. So water, which was the one on the right, is then broken down into WASH at the top, which is essentially a extension of the current MDGs. That's the way I see it simplistically. Then there's one which focuses on managing wastewater, which encompasses all types of residual waste from sanitation systems. So that includes fecal sludge, septage and the like, grey water, stormwater, you name it, it's all there. And then the last one is on water resources. So there are 3 targets within the water goal. And then UN Water has been facilitating this global thematic consultation. And as I mentioned, IWA has just been part of this process. We haven't been facilitating it, we've just been part of it. And you'll see here where we are in this process. So in the entire month of September, review and approval process within UN Water. So it's all been very fast track. The one on WASH was much more advanced than the other 2, because of the nature of the MDGs finishing 2015, the MDG community, the development community, was much more conscious that the MDGs would come to an end and they needed to start thinking about what after that. Whereas the other 2 targets on wastewater and water resource management, they initiated this process really in less than a year, if not less. So as I said, the end is coming here, October, when the final document will be presented to this Budapest Water Summit, and that will, I think, be the end of the process. I'm not going to talk about the water resource one. I'm not going to talk much. I'm just going to show you very quickly. The water resources one, I'm not being too much aware of their focus, but on the WASH one and the wastewater one, I've been involved in the wastewater task force, but I thought it would be of particular interest and relevance for the SuSanA participants to see what the WASH targets are, and those are them. So I've not been involved in this process, but so you know what they are. Those are the proposed targets. And I don't think I've got time. I'm not going to go through them all. It's just so you can see what they are. And if you want to write them down afterwards, come and see me, or you'll get the presentation. And then each one of those, target 1, 2, 3, 4, has sub-indicators. And I think a lot of these will probably not go through simply because there's too many. That's my own personal opinion, and I think others involved in this process will think likewise, because there are probably just too many. If you go back to the initial slide, water was one of the goals, and then within that, if you have 3 targets, and then you have indicators and sub-indicators, the politicians will just go, this is too complicated. So there's a good chance, I would say, that some of those indicators will get lost in the process, but we will see. That was 2 of the indicators and their sub-indicators, and you can see how complicated this gets. On the wastewater, before I saw this latest version, I thought we were just talking about having 1 target, but the latest iteration has come back. I see on the latest documentation that there are now 3 targets, which does make it a bit more easily digestible. One is about reducing untreated wastewater from urban populations, one specifically on industrial wastewater, and one which would be of particular relevance to SuSanA is the nutrient pollution, although that's from agriculture. So, and then the indicators for those targets are those 6 there. So I don't think there's time to go through in any detail, but if there's any quick questions, then I'll try and address those.
One question would be on that. Before it sort of said by X%, by Y%, and that's what will be negotiated at some stage, or are there already proposals for that? Or
no, there isn't. I think we've avoided that difficult question and left that to the political process. So I think the first question would be from the political side: do they recognise and accept that? And then and if they do, what numbers do they want to put forward?
Can I give you that and help you with the microphone?
Yeah, sure.
Can you speak to IWA's, the research that was just done in terms of the capacity needed in the 15 countries? And from what I understand, and I may be incorrect in understanding this, but from what I understand, that IWA was then proposing that capacity had to be also included as a goal or target at some level. No? Or you don't know?
I don't rightly know. I know that the study looked at what was the capacity gaps to meet the current MDGs. I'm not aware of that specific recommendation, but there were some fairly big numbers coming out for the capacity requirements to meet the current MDGs, let alone what's being proposed here, which is 100% coverage, plus all this other stuff, which is managing all the wastewater sustainably and reusing and etc. But I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that particular recommendation.
Okay.
Just a very short question to you, Jonathan. You know, I had a short discussion with people from STC last Monday, and obviously there is a certain risk, you know, what actually for water and sanitation goal will be skipped. Do you know something about that?
Well, apart from what I said at the moment, which was the caveat on all this, that all these are proposed goals, and if they are not, they may not be endorsed, in which case the water goal none of this would appear in the Sustainable Development Goals, because the water
so
goal as a whole
don't have
wouldn't
any
be.
further information about.
No, because it's all in part of this political process, which is we're not involved in. Just coming back to the point on the capacity, I do remember we had the consultation. Dorothy, you made a good contribution. It wasn't IWA, but there was a contribution from your working group, wasn't there, back in the global thematic process in March, and that I remember seeing that in one of the subsequent sort of minutes of the consultation. But I don't think these are seen to be, I think the discussion was that capacity is more a means to an end, whereas these targets are seen to be more the goal that you're trying to achieve.
Hi, can you skip back to the WASH targets, please? Even if you might not know the overview about all four, yeah. So maybe I'm stupid, but if we fulfill target 2, everyone has water, sanitation, and hygiene at home. Don't we fulfill then also target 1 and also target 4?
I've not been involved in this.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking into the round. Yeah, I'm a bit confused, and I hope that not the people who decide are also confused. But I like that it's a universal access. I like this very much.
The first one is practicing it, and the other is just they have it.
All I know is that the process has been the group that is focused on this has had a lot more time. But if that's the immediate response, then we have to relay that back to those people involved in that particular consultation. Conrad, I think it was.
No, I think applying some common sense. I mean, if you look to countries at lower income, first you will target schools, health centers, and all that, and you will be far ahead, probably, of reaching that one before you can come to everybody's household.
Sure.
So probably people thought we better make it on 2 levels. Yeah. I think that might be an explanation. Yeah.
It makes sense. First target 1, and then
it does. There's a fits in with this progressive realization, doesn't it, of the human right.
Okay, last 2 questions or comments, and then we'll close that.
Just wondering on the wastewater targets again. And the third one was you had
this one.
Yeah, the third one seems to be want to reduce nutrient pollution from agriculture, but not nutrient pollution from rural sanitation systems, because it's about urban population, industrial wastewater for 1 and 2, and then you have suddenly agriculture, but nothing on rural sanitation systems.
I was advocating a broader focus on the nutrients and resource recovery, but this is what came out of the process, so I would agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I would just strengthen that suggestion. In a country like Mozambique, Maputo is urban, the rest is rural.
Yeah, no, like I say, these are not, I've been part of this process. It doesn't necessarily mean I fully endorse everything here. You know, it's been a difficult process, and at certain points, you know, you need to just make your comments and then accept that the weight of the consultation is moving in a certain direction. So, and I think that part of the difficulty is focusing on sort of, I suppose, what different organisations perceive to be the priority. And I think basically the argument here was that the majority of the nutrient, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Arno will probably know better, but much better. But is the significant proportion of nutrients, is that from agriculture? Is that statement correct? So that was based. So that is that. Okay. So not in Mozambique, not in Africa, but that was the argument, was that let's focus on the key sources of the nutrient pollution, and this is from that was the argument. So, you know, but I had sympathies with the statement here that shouldn't we look at more holistically and resource recovery and have something broader.
Yeah, probably also, if I look at that, that's the target 3 is looking at water resources management. I mean, it's prevention of pollution of water resources. That is, according to me, why that thing is there.
Yeah,
and that which is definitely a big problem in a lot of also industrial countries.
Mm.
Yeah?
It doesn't. I mean, it's right to say that this target 3, doesn't fit in so much with the with the other ones, which are have more of a sort of settlement, population, agglomeration perspective. And this one came in from that water resource, the lobby from the water resource side, saying we need something addressing that. Anyway, I will shut up.
Excellent. Big round of applause, please. Thanks for that. I will ask Arne to close that, but I do want to thank the people that are actively participating online. Trevor just told me he's totally excited because people are posting and discussing and really enjoying it. So thanks to everyone online that's sort of sticking with us and discussing online.
I think there are several sessions in Stockholm Water Week which will continue in different aspects of the discussion we have just touched a little bit. What I've heard beforehand was always we shouldn't go into this topic because it's boring and it's only high level and what does it mean. I found it quite interesting that how interested the audience here became seeing this more or less perfect target suggestions. And I would think that we should not dedicate 100% of our time in understanding and following this, but that stimulus which comes out of that might be useful, and especially as some of our members are more deeply involved in any case to shape them or to discuss them or to be frustrated about them. So I think it should be a topic we should give some attention. And what I think as well became quite clear from thank you very much for your contribution is that in 2 years from now this will heavily influence our members. So to be prepared and to start now to be prepared is nothing lost. So I'm very happy for that contribution again. Thank you. So I think now it's Dorothea, you will tell us what you are doing. Huh?
I will tell you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Perfect. How much time do I have?
It says here coffee break at 4:30, so that's 25 minutes.
Oh, yeah, no, won't take that long. I was asked to say a few words on the forum statistics. I'm showing a few slides that were done during the statistics report that we did after we have launched the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grants on the forum, so we can also see a little bit the impact that how we can use SuSanA to do this work, but also what we're giving back to SuSanA. Just as an introduction, when the forum was produced, and I think this is very important why it becomes so interesting for the Gates Foundation, is that it's an open forum versus a closed mailing group. So we're reaching much more people, and the raise in working group members is also linked to the more visibility that we have on the web. I skip this, I think. This is the forum, how it looks today. We have at the moment 779 users yesterday evening, and 5,000 total messages. When I looked at this graph last time, it was about half of the messages. So we had an increase in messages, but not really in users. We have a steady growth since the beginning of the launch, but a small step there going up in December when the Gates Forum was launched. of course, as not all of the almost 3,000 members are contributing within the different working groups, they're not that active on the forum neither. A lot of them are just consuming. Doesn't mean that it isn't relevant to them, but we have still an increase, a core group of people which are really having lively discussions and coming back regular. This is now not the forum members. So members means just I got a login, nothing more. But these are the visits. So the people that came to the web page from wherever. And as well, you can see again, we had increase after December and in the beginning of the year when we launched. Oh no, this is 2012. Yeah. So we don't have the dates for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation here, but we have an increase steadily growing, which then flattens a little bit. This dumps there are due to holidays and Christmas. You can see it on every homepage when you look at these statistics. So we have looked at more now the forum visits per week. This was per month before, and what we can see here is the comparison of a baseline period of 3 months and the reference period when the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grants were launched. We could only make this 3 months because for technical reasons we only had that data at this time. And there you can see an increase when it goes down there on week 78. This is just Christmas. It's like that on all web pages as well. It's really normal. It comes every year. I see it on every page. But we can't say that it's really for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which I think it is, because we had an increase always before. As well, this is showing the numbers. So we had 24,000 visits before in the 3 months, and in the 3 months after the launch we had 32. So it's a third more, but we had a continuous increase, could be linked to that as well. But what we had were more posts. So the cumulative forum posts have raised during the period. And as well the topics on the forum. So people became more engaged. What and why I'm presenting this? This is a general forum statistics, what happened when we launched the mobile version. I mentioned this because we could do this mobile version only because through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation money, we could get Stefan to work on such things. And this has really increased the use of the forum from mobile or tablets, but still we have the most of the people are accessing the forum via a normal computer. Sources of traffic to the SuSanA forum, what does this mean? Do the people just enter the URL in their toolbar, or do they click on Google after they did the simple research for a keyword like, I don't know what, biogas? Do they come through the SuSanA webpage? And most of the people come through Google or other search engines. And that's good, I think, because it makes them aware. They're looking for topics where we have an experience on and talking about. But we still have some referral traffic, which is quite high. That means that, for instance, I link from my webpage to the SuSanA forum. So this means referral traffic. And then we have 26% direct traffic. So people that come to the forum, they open the browser because they want to come there. Campaigns do also the part. Campaigns is similar to referral traffic. That means I post somewhere on another forum an announcement of something that has happened on the forum, and they then come to it. yeah, that's a little bit the same. That's interesting as well, maybe not for you. For me, in the weekends there is less activity. That means people are going there because they're working. They're going there from their offices. Either they don't work and they just on the forum, or they I don't know. But yeah. Location of forum visitors by region. So still most of our users, so over 50%, make together the North, means Europe and Northern America. But then the third most active is Eastern Africa. And then we have Southeast Asia, and Southern Africa should there be, but there's a spelling mistake, however. And then on a country level, Germany and the US do have the highest numbers of visitors. Now for the ST category, what means ST category is our statistic expression for sanitation technology innovations. That's basically the part where the grants are launched. And actually 40% of the posts there are made by people not being a grantee, but by people replying or interacting. Of course, it includes all the moderators. Some of the moderators are very active, posting a lot, others less. They're more in the background. But still, a big part of the people that are getting involved are people from the forum or even from outside SuSanA that are new visitors. Then also percentage of all posts from on the forum that are made within this technology category is quite high. There are, now it's the wrong writing, but you can't read it very well anymore. Anyway, but the blue one is posts that are in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation category. So most popular topics, this is now for the whole forum, but you have shown some for the Gates Foundation category. This is for the whole forum. This Gates Foundation launched several rounds of Reinvent the Toilet, is actually the most viewed topic, followed by hacking toilets and some others. But which is also interesting and still quite high in the list, is the 70th SuSanA meeting and the 16th SuSanA meeting. So it shows this is also a very important tool for the communication within SuSanA, not only with the wider audience on the web. Most popular topics by replies, so where people really engaged in the discussions. Again, the one on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations and the hacking toilet, so quite similar. And, sorry, this was per view, the first graph, who was interested in, and the second one was per reply, who engaged in the discussions. And now a little bit as a conclusion, so what could we do? Thanks to this Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation money, we not only could launch a discussion on these grants openly, but we also could implement the mobile version finally. We could, you maybe have realized it, but the whole SuSanA forum got a new face, and the user guidance have changed completely to make it more easy to enter into the different topics. We have started to communicate more on the SuSanA forum and get more referral visits because we could announce our second milestone, for instance, when we have launched half of the grantees on the web. And even the statistics that I'm showing, we didn't really have statistics on the forum. It was really basic what we had before. And now, within the process of installing this new category, we also install the regular statistic report every month, so we can have more data in the future. And besides that, we have That's the mobile version, the statistics. We are very prominently on the SEI homepage. This was launched recently as well. And very new, we are now, by the quick links, that the web page and the SuSanA forum are both directly linked on the main homepage when you go to water, sanitation, and hygiene of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And I think that's quite nice. So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Dorothee. Questions at that point, Raoul?
Yeah, there's a question on Twitter about who is the moderator's team behind the forum.
That we answered earlier, huh?
I don't remember all of them. There are some are moderators for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grants, and there are also moderators on the forum in general. So that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean, we have a number of moderators and sort of community managers. I mean, as far as community management goes, the main folks doing that are the ones that are involved in the Gates grant and myself. So that'd be Elizabeth, Dorothy, Nelson, Kim, and myself doing the community management. And that's, yeah, I mean, community management, what is that? Does everyone know what community management is on a forum? No. That's a lot of emails in the background. And lots of emails in the background, prompt people, sometimes convince people. Yeah, no, you know those. to post on the forum. And then also, obviously, quality check, but more from a spam perspective. And sort of trying to keep threads, etc. You know, there's discussion happening and rolling and staying on topic. Other than that, we have a number of moderators who are then also giving up their time. And there's about 6 or 7 of them. I don't have all the names in my head, but Jürgen, Cecilia, Cecile, and a few others. Sorry? Doreen, and a few others. And they're sort of spaced out across the globe. So that we're trying our best to cover as many time zones as possible. So that's one. And then I had a comment or an addition to perhaps Dorothy's impact of the Gates grant on the forum. Prior to Gates getting involved in SuSanA, the reach to North America was small. Okay. Since Gates has come on board, we now all of a sudden, SuSanA is all of a sudden present in North America, which it wasn't before. And so that I attribute, some can say it would have developed like that anyway, but I attribute the pace that's developed in the last year purely to the fact that we're discussing so many grants that are being done by research organizations in the States.
Good, I see no further hand. Oh, I do see one more hand.
This is linked to this presentation right now, as well as some of the discussions we had earlier as well. Clearly, what was seen from here was the reach. We as a group have not been able to reach out to the practitioners in the South as much as we would like to, where the real work is happening or should be happening. And it's evident from this forum, as well as even if you look around this meeting hall, we do not have as many practitioners for the South. Because of various reasons, many beyond our control maybe. But still, and what was interesting was in the morning, one of our objectives for the next 5 years or so was this regional nodes or so, which could be a medium to reach out to practitioners in the South. We do need to do that. So I was wondering if we can spend a little time today to do that exactly. In a way, it is like the working groups. Now, the working groups are sectoral based, but this is like a working group that is regional based. So South Asia, SuSanA South Asia working group, or SuSanA Sub-Saharan Africa working group, or so on. If that is a possibility, or how we could move ahead on that. And if necessary, I can volunteer to work on the South Asia part. South Asia.
All right, that's excellent. Maybe we can just discuss in the coffee break how we, maybe can fit that into the last block.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm the last to come in.
with Ina. Sorry, I just let, okay, with some other person. This is my first meeting. I'm from Nigeria. I work for AMCOW. I used to work for WaterAid Nigeria as a sanitation focal person. And I'm a member of the WSSCC. I've been for about 6 years now. I'm not trying to compare the two networks, so to speak, but I'm just thinking, we used to have like a country focal person for WSSCC send mails to members of the WSSCC within the country. Maybe just to contribute to what what he just raised, if we can have within the sub-regions or within the countries, periodically, we just share some emails. I think it will create some kind of awareness. Like I try to share with colleagues within the sector in Nigeria issues that or how I've gained from SuSanA. And I think if we look at how we can do that, just periodically share emails on what's happening on SuSanA, it can build awareness and increase membership. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now I really see no more hands, and we will take a well-deserved coffee break for 15 minutes, and Anna wants to say one last word.
Yes, I think that I want to talk about the coffee break. After the coffee break, it's in the program that we would talk about what were the highlights, what is a summary of the discussion, then where could be the next SuSanA meeting or regional meeting or side event in a larger thing, and how do we summarize this? I think as we have some of the things which were just raised, how to use the social media and so on to give more strength and relevance to the South, that could be followed there, and as well where could be the following meetings. As we are quite not behind schedule, we're actually just on the dot. There's something that will bring us behind schedule, and that's the group photo. And I don't know who is the master of the group photo. I would ask that. Okay, so who has a camera, and then where is the group photo? In front of the door. So I think first coffee or first no coffee without group photo. I think we have to be that brutal. Huh? Anybody has it? Okay. Okay, and then we have some more time for the coffee break to discuss these issues, and I would say we come back here at 5.